Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hello everybody, welcome back to my channel Tcher Syed 2020, and I hope you have a wonderful time today. This discussion consists of several elements: reading mainly, language awareness or grammar, vocabulary, and a bit of writing. Not only that, today's discussion also involves a movie. What movie are we going to talk about here? Okay, just sit back and relax and watch this video until the end. Okay, we are using our textbooks close up, and we are at unit 7, and I would suggest you to have your textbooks with you throughout the discussion so that you can join the discussion better. When you turn to the writing section on page 84, you will get this, okay, this page. And get ready guys, you are going to embark on an adventurous expedition. Bear in mind, the title of this unit is Extreme Situations. What you about to read is therefore something very extreme. The title of the text or the passage is Survival in the Andes. Wow, the title itself sounds a bit suspenseful, doesn't it? Let us study the page from the top. Okay, we start with activity A, reading. Read the breaking news about the real life story. Who are the people in the story and where were they? Where were they going? What do you think happened next? Okay, those are some questions for introduction, so that you have some curiosity on what is going to happen in this passage or in this text. Okay, so let us read the breaking news. Thursday, October 12, 1972, Flight 571 carrying Uruguay's championship rugby team took off from Montevideo, Uruguay, heading to Santiago, Chile. On the plane, there were 45 people, the crew, the Uruguayan players, and their friends and relatives. Soon after takeoff, the plane had to stop at Mendoza, Argentina because of bad weather. Okay, Friday, October 13, 2:18 p.m., Flight 571 took off again, heading for Santiago. Friday, October 13, 3:20 p.m., about an hour into the flight, the pilots began to descend into Santiago, not realizing the plane was still close to the high peaks of the Andes mountain. Activity B, you are going to read an article about what happened to the passengers on Flight 571. Quickly scan the article to check your predictions about what happened next. Survival in the Andes. On Friday, October 13, oh my god, this is way too cool. Okay, on October 13, 1972, a plane that had been flying from Uruguay to Chile with 45 people on board crashed into a mountain in the Andes. How some of the passengers managed to live is one of the great survival stories. Okay, that is how the article starts. Okay, so as you can see that the writer purposely put a hook. What is the hook? The last sentence of the paragraph. 20 people died in the crash and in the weeks following it. On the mountain, it was freezing cold, and the survivors stayed inside the crashed plane to stay warm. They had very little food and were in very great danger while they waited for a rescue team. After 11 days on the mountain, they found a small radio on the plane, and they heard the news that the rescue teams had stopped searching for them. All hope was gone. They were alone and terrified. Okay, that was what happened. Okay, they were stranded on the mountain peak, and they found out that the rescue team had already stopped the search and rescue mission, and of course they were terrified. Days became weeks. 2 months after the crash, after they had waited for summer to arrive, 3 of the passengers, Roberto Canessa, Nando Prado, and Antonio Vicentin, left to search for help. Each man wore 3 pairs of socks with a plastic bag around each foot to keep the water out, boots, 4 pairs of trousers, and 4 jumpers. Many of the clothes were from the people who had died in the crash. They all took with them a large sleeping bag that they had made. Only they could save the others now. So they had to do something. So 3 of them decided to leave the place, okay, in order to look for help. If they continue waiting, they would die. So 3 of them decided to leave the place and look for help. How did these brave young men cope with the journey? None of them had climbed mountains before, and it was hard. They climbed very dangerous icy peaks trying to reach to the top of the mountain. Some days later, exhausted and cold, they reached it. They had imagined this moment for days. On the other side of the mountain, they wanted to see a valley below that would take them out of the mountains. But instead of a valley, they saw more of the same snowy peaks, lots of them. They weren't near the end of the mountains, they were in the middle of them. What would they do now? Okay, after they have traveled to look for help, they finally found out that they didn't go anywhere actually, and they were still stuck in the middle of the mountain. So of course they were frustrated. Okay, but there was still hope. Okay, and suddenly there was hope. Parado saw 2 low peaks about 65 kilometers away that didn't have snow on them. If they could get there, they would be out of the high Andes. But to reach the peaks, they would need to walk for more days, and they didn't have enough food. But Parado had a solution. Vizintin could return to the plane, and he and Canessa would take his food. They agreed on the plan, and Canessa and Parado continued their journey. So that's their plan. Okay, they had to split, meaning one of them had to return to the plane, and 2 of them continued the journey to look for rescue. And then as they walked, the area around them slowly began to change. The men discovered a small river. The sun was warmer. After a few days of walking, the snow had disappeared completely and flowers were everywhere. "This is the valley," Canessa said excitedly. "This is the way out." And finally they saw something very, very interesting, which is they began to notice that the snow had disappeared and the sun became warmer. So that shows hope. Okay, soon they saw a few cans on the ground and some farm animals in the field. They knew there must be people somewhere nearby. 21st, after 10 days, the exhausted men reached the town of Los Montañes in Chile, and a rescue team went to save the other passengers high up in the Andes. Okay, and finally they saw cans. Cans means the existence of human beings around the place, and finally they managed to reach the town. Okay, and of course they managed to find the rescue. Okay, what happened to them? What had happened to them? Fortunately, they had all survived as they waited for the others to get help. The memories of the crash in the Andes would be with them forever, but their ordeal was over. They had made it out alive. Okay, and that is the ending. Of course, they managed to get help. The rescue team finally managed to locate them, and of course they were taken out of the mountain peak, and they were alive. Okay, the last word of the sentence, the last word of the passage is alive. That word is very significant actually. After this I will show you why. Okay, after reading this passage, we also learn a few new words. Okay, look at the word focus there. Word focus, a tiny box there. Okay, we learn the word peak. P-E-A-K. What does that mean? The top of the mountain. Peak. It also has several other meanings actually. Here it means the top of the mountain. Okay, and then we have the word exhausted. Means very tired. Not just tired, but very tired. So very tired is exhausted. So therefore you cannot say very exhausted. Exhausted means very tired. When you are very tired, you use the word exhausted. Okay, valley. What is valley? An area of low land between mountains, often with a river through it. Okay, there are mountains, and the low part between the 2 mountains is called valley. Okay, and ordeal. Wow, this is a bombastic word. Ordeal means very painful or difficult thing, just like what they experience on the top of the mountain. That is called ordeal. Not only painful, but very painful and very difficult thing. Okay. Okay, Alhamdulillah, that was activity B, where we read and understand the article about survival in the Andes. Very, very interesting story, isn't it? Okay, now we go to activity C. Okay, we go to activity C. Read the exam close up, then read the exam task and underline the keywords. Okay, let us read the exam close up first. The exam close up said, reading for general understanding. It is a good idea to get general understanding on the message of the text before you complete the exam task. Okay, so the very first thing that you must do is to get the general understanding of the passage, not the details but the general story. Okay, read the text carefully from the beginning to the end without worrying about the new vocab. This will give you a good idea of what the text is about. Just like what I said earlier, go back to each paragraph and make notes about the main idea of each paragraph. Okay, next you have to get the main idea of each paragraph. Each paragraph has different ideas actually. Then take some of them to think about all the ideas in the text before starting the exam task. Okay, then take some time to think about all the ideas in the text before starting the exam task. Then you can get the whole idea of the story. Okay, so let us go to the exam task. This is comprehension, something that tests how well you understand the text. Okay, exam task. Read the text and questions below. For each question, choose the correct letter A, B, C, or D. Okay, let us do this together. Okay, number one, what is the writer doing in this text? Okay, is he giving advice on how to survive, explaining the incredible past events, showing that air travel is dangerous, or D, writing an imaginative story? Okay, what is the answer? Okay, right. The answer is B. Okay, explaining incredible past events. Okay, incredible past events. It is incredible because they survived in a very dangerous situation. Okay, why were the three men disappointed? The three men who left the plane to get help. Okay, why were they? There was a time when they were disappointed. What happened to them actually? Okay, is it A, the view from the mountain was not very good? They didn't know how to return to the plane. They realized they had more problems. They had not brought enough warm clothes. Okay, what do you think, class? The answer? Okay, the answer is C. They realized they had more problems because the journey was still long and they didn't have enough food. Okay. 3. Visintin returned to the crash site because they had lost hope. He had lost hope. He did not agree with Parado's solution. He didn't want to walk any further. Or D, there was not enough food for the three people. I think this one is very clear. Okay, the answer is D. There was not enough food for three people. Number 4, Parado and Kanesa knew they were close to safety because. Okay, what is the answer? Okay, A, they saw things that belong to people. They discovered a river. They had been walking for 10 days. Or D, there were flowers in the snow. Okay, what makes them think they were close to safety? Okay, what is the clue there? Okay, the clue is none other than A. They saw things that belong to people. What are they? What are the things? Cans. Maybe food cans. Okay. And finally, number 5. Which best describes what happened to the people on flight 571? The survivors on the crash waited for many weeks in the plane for someone to find and rescue them. B, tragically, 29 people died when the plane they were traveling in crashed into a mountain in the Andes. C, in a terrible situation with no hope at all, the survivors found a way to save themselves. Or D, to stay warm in the freezing cold, they wore the clothes of the people who had died in the crash. Which statement best describes the whole story of what happened to the victims? Okay, the answer is C. In a terrible situation with no hope at all, the survivors found a way to save themselves. In a terrible situation, okay, they were stranded on a mountain peak, very very far from other human beings. With no hope at all, a rescue team had stopped searching for them. The survivors found a way to save themselves. What was the way? Leaving the place and look for help. Okay, assigning 2 or 3 of them to leave the place and look for help, and finally they survive. Okay, that was activity C. Now we are at activity D. What is activity D? Find the meaning of the words below in the text, then complete the sentences below. Okay, now we learn new words. Okay, the first one is a phrase, cope with. 2, search. 3, survive. And then save, and then crash, and then reach. Okay, there are 6 items altogether. Let us try putting them in a sentence. Okay, number 1, you will blank the car if you don't know how to drive it properly. What is the answer? You will crash. Okay, crash. Okay, the car if you don't know how to drive it properly. Number 2, it is possible to blank in the jungle if you know how to find food. Is it possible to survive, okay, in the jungle if you know how to find food? Number 3, there were many problems and Harry did them very well. Okay, what is the answer? There were many problems and Harry did them very well. The answer is cope with. Problems, we cope with the problems, or we deal with the problems. Okay, so the answer is cope with. Number 4, they were in the middle of the desert, so nobody could them. Okay, nobody could them. Okay, because they were in the middle of the desert. Number 5, after the river, we'll rest before we cross the other side. After we reach the river, we'll rest before we cross to the other side. And number 6, rescue teams will continue for the missing mountain climbers. Okay, there's only one option there, and that is very accurate. The answer is search. Okay, rescue teams will continue to search for the missing mountain climbers. Okay, E, write some more sentences in your notebook using words in D. Okay, you have 6 words there. Okay, so you have to compose, or you have to make your own sentences using the words that you learn in activity B. Okay, I'll try one. Okay, I'll try the first one, cope with. Okay, let's see. During MCO, movement control order, we have to learn how to cope with the new situation. During MCO, we have to learn to cope with the new situation. That is my sentence. You can make your own. Okay. Before we have already covered the whole page, and we have one more at the end, at the bottom of the page. This one is page 85. Okay, ideas focus. Do you think you would cope with the situation if you got lost in a foreign country? Why and why not? Okay, imagine you are lost in a foreign country. Okay, you are separated from your family. Okay, will you be able to survive? What would you do to survive? Okay, you can have the discussion with your teacher. Okay, what would you do? And I think if this is the question, I think it will be a very active discussion. There are so many things to talk about. Okay, just like when you are lost in the jungle, maybe you can share your knowledge about survival skills, where to get water, where to find food. Okay, how to trap the animals and all that, how to differentiate between edible and non-edible plants. Okay, what one thing could you not survive without? Name one thing that you cannot survive without. You cannot survive without this thing. Okay, nowadays it must be right? Internet or smartphone and all that. So you can have the discussion with your respective teachers. If I may add one more, reading the story from the beginning until the end, we know that they had survived in the Andes. Okay, you can imagine, class, more than 2 months on the top of the mountain, where everything, they were surrounded by snow, and together with other types of dangers, for example a snowstorm, or maybe wild animals and all that, and of course the super unfriendly weather, and they finally survived. So what can you learn from this, actually? So there are times in our life where we have to fight to survive. And I assume, okay, they knew how to survive because they were trained in a rugby team. They were a rugby team. And in rugby, okay, they apply what they learn in rugby in real life, where in rugby you have to undergo a very strenuous training, very hard training. Sometimes it involves injury and all that. You have to do everything, you have to do your best in order to win the game. So now they are put in a totally different game, a game called life and death. And I assume that they managed to survive because of the values that they get from the rugby game. That's my assumption. Okay, you can give your own assumption when you discuss this with your teachers. Okay, and finally, just now I mentioned something about movie. In 1993, a movie was produced based on this incident. Okay, if you watch the movie, you will know what happened. You will have a better description of what happened to these people. Okay, so now I will share with you the ending clip. Okay, if you read the passage, you know how the story ends. Okay, and this is how it was portrayed in the movie Alive. Okay, enjoy this.
And so we were saved. Nando and Canessa breached the Andes, and we were saved.
Okay, boys and girls, I think we have come up to the end of the discussion. Thank you very much for watching this video from the beginning until the end, and I hope you learned something new from this episode. Okay, good luck with your studies, good luck with your exam, and see you again in my next videos. May Allah bless you all. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.